You're in the hallway at work, and someone you've talked to maybe 3 times asks how your weekend was, and you actually tell them. You mention you've been feeling drained lately, things at home have been a little off, you're figuring some stuff out, and mid-sentence, you watch their face do a soft emergency landing. The smile stays, but something behind it closes. That shift, where warmth becomes politeness in half a second, you've felt it before. And every time, you walked away thinking you said something wrong, that some part of you is just wired incorrectly for casual conversation. There's a single unspoken rule running beneath every casual exchange in American social life. By the end of this video, you'll know what it is, how it works, and the 5 ways people break it without ever understanding what happened. And when I explain what this rule is actually designed to protect, that's the part that rewires how you hear every "how are you" for the rest of your life. Small talk in America isn't small. It's a screening system, a social handshake that happens in words instead of grip strength. And most people don't realize there's a wrong way to do it because the right way was never explicitly taught, it was absorbed. Through watching parents, mimicking classmates, through years of low-stakes repetition that trained your reflexes until the whole thing ran on autopilot. But if you didn't absorb it, if you grew up in a household that communicated differently, or a culture where casual meant something else, or you just have a brain that processes social cues manually instead of automatically, then you've been walking through doors that have locks you can't see. Linguists call this kind of exchange phatic communication, language where the meaning isn't in the words, "How are you?" Doesn't mean, "Tell me how you are." It means, "I see you. We're safe here. We're neutral." Your brain isn't supposed to process the content. It's supposed to read the tone for safety. Nobody taught you this rule. That's not your fault. The system was designed to feel invisible to the people it already works for. So let me show you how the game actually works. Here's the rule, and it's deceptively simple. Match the depth you're given. In every casual conversation, the other person sets a depth level through their tone, their word choice, the lightness or weight of what they share. Your job before anything else is to match that level, not exceed it, not dive beneath it, match it. Then, if the conversation builds enough trust, you go one level deeper together, but only one step at a time, and only when the other person steps down first or signals that they're ready. That's it. That's the invisible contract. It governs everything from "nice weather, huh?" to "how's your mom doing?" The depth isn't random. It's an offer. And your response is either an acceptance of that offer or a violation of it. The most common way to violate it doesn't feel like a violation at all. It feels like honesty. You're at a coworker's birthday thing, standing near the drinks table, fluorescent lights humming that specific workplace frequency overhead. Someone you've seen in the elevator a dozen times asks how your weekend was. Their voice is light. Their body is open but loose, weight on one leg, cup in hand, eyes drifting across the room every few seconds. They gave you a surface ping, a level 1, and you respond at level 3. You tell them you didn't do much, because honestly you've been dealing with some family stuff. You mention your sleep has been off. Maybe you laugh a little while you say it, trying to sand down the edges, but the information is already in the air and you can feel the space between you tighten. Their eyebrows lift half an inch, not in curiosity, in recalibration. Every word you said was true. But you answered a sonar ping with a full transmission, and now this person is performing the social equivalent of slowly backing their car out of a parking spot. You've done this. Everyone has. And the problem wasn't the content of what you said, it was the depth relative to what you were given. That one's common. But this next one is quieter, and it does more damage because you don't even realize it's happening until afterward. What I'm about to describe, you've done this, and you probably didn't know what it cost you. It starts with the walk home, or the drive, or lying in bed at midnight, replaying a gathering you went to 3 hours ago, trying to pinpoint the exact moment you became invisible. You remember conversations rerouting around you. Someone's laugh that felt 1 degree too bright after you spoke. The group's energy shifting just slightly away from your corner of the room. But you can't figure out when it happened. So let me rewind it for you. You're at a friend of a friend's apartment, A small gathering, maybe 8 people. The smell of something overcooked drifting from the kitchen. Everyone's standing in a loose circle, trading weekend highlights, a new restaurant somebody tried, a bad movie, a gym joke that gets more laughs than it deserves. The group is cruising at level 1. Light, warm, frictionless. And then you say something real, not dramatic, just real. You mention that you've been spending most weekends alone lately and you're not sure how you feel about it. The room doesn't go silent. That would be easier to diagnose. What happens is almost surgical. Someone says, "Yeah, totally," in a voice that's one shade too bright. Someone else pivots to a new topic with the precision of an air traffic controller, and the circle's energy reorganizes, not against you, but quietly without you. Here's the math that just happened in everyone else's head, and none of them were conscious of it. When one person drops below the group's established depth, it creates a silent pressure on everyone else to either match that depth or steer away from it. In a room of near strangers, nobody wants to match. So they steer. And the person who went deep reads the redirect as rejection. It wasn't rejection, but it felt identical. Nobody taught you the game. You were just expected to play. So far, these have been about miscalibrating depth. This next one cuts differently because it comes from a place of genuine wanting. You're on a first date. A coffee shop with too much exposed brick and not enough lighting. Things are going well. You're both doing the easy back and forth, the light personal questions, the casual self-deprecation that signals I'm safe, I'm normal, I'm worth another hour of your time. And somewhere around the 30-minute mark, something shifts. The conversation gets a little warmer. They share something mildly personal, a frustration with their roommate, a passing comment about their family being complicated. Level 2. Maybe the edge of level 3. And you take that opening and you run. You share something genuinely vulnerable, something you've been carrying. Maybe it's about a relationship that left a mark, or a stretch of your life you're still making sense of. You share it not to perform. You share it because you felt invited. Because their level 2 felt like a door opening. But it wasn't a door. It was a window. They cracked it an inch to let in air, and you climbed through. Something recalibrates behind their eyes. Not disgust. Not discomfort exactly. A quiet recognition that this conversation just left the territory they were prepared for. Their responses get shorter. The eye contact softens into something managed. By the time you leave, the date is technically still happening, but something essential has already sealed shut behind their smile. You weren't oversharing to get attention. You were following an emotional logic that made perfect sense inside your own chest. The problem wasn't your honesty. It was the speed of your honesty relative to the trust that had actually been built. That awkwardness you felt afterward? It wasn't you being broken. It was you being untranslated. Now flip it. Because here's the part most people never consider, and this is the piece that makes everything else land differently. Imagine you're the one sitting across that table. Someone you've known for 45 minutes suddenly shares something deeply personal, something heavy, something that requires care, and the kind of emotional reciprocity you don't even offer most of your close friends. What do you actually feel in that moment? You feel cornered, not because you're cold, not because you don't care, but because real vulnerability requires trust, and trust takes time, and this person just created an emotional debt you didn't agree to take on. You're suddenly expected to hold their pain, and you're not equipped for it. You don't have the context, you don't have the history. You just have this heavy, intimate thing sitting between two lattes and no idea what to do with it. From their side, they were being authentic. From your side, the one you're sitting in right now, they created an expectation you couldn't meet. And here's the part that matters. Both people walk away feeling like the other person failed. They're not being cold. You're not being fake. You're both operating inside the same rule, just from opposite positions. Remember that hallway conversation from the very beginning, where you mentioned your weekend and watched their face close? Now you know what was happening on their side too. And it wasn't cruelty. It was a system neither of you could see. Everything up to now has been about what happens when you break the rule. This last part is about why the rule exists in the first place, and once you see this, the frustration dissolves into something more useful. Stay with me for this. You're walking to your mailbox and a neighbor you nod to but never really talk to stops to chat. You talk about the weather, the construction noise 2 streets over, the new dog someone on the block just got. Nothing deep, nothing revealing. And when you walk back inside, you feel something surprisingly warm, not because anything meaningful was exchanged, but because the interaction worked. It was smooth, it was easy, it fit. That feeling is what the rule is protecting. There's a concept in social psychology called self-disclosure reciprocity, the principle that trust is built through matched vulnerability, offered step by step. Not because people are guarded or shallow, but because emotional safety is something you construct in layers, the way you'd build a structure designed to hold real weight. You don't start with the roof. The brilliance of American small talk, and this is the part most critics completely miss, is that it creates a space where two strangers can establish safety without either person having to risk anything real. It's a low-cost, low-risk protocol for signaling, I'm approachable, I'm predictable, I'm not about to make this weird. That's not shallow. That's elegant social engineering. And when someone skips that protocol, when they go deep before the surface has been tested, it doesn't read as brave or authentic. It reads as someone who can't see the architecture, someone who might not respect other invisible lines either. Not because that's true about you, but because the pattern suggests it. You shared something real. You shared something true. You shared something that mattered. And with each one, you watched the room get a little quieter. Not because the room didn't care, but because the room wasn't built yet. You were furnishing a house that didn't have walls. The rule isn't about being fake. It's about giving the other person a choice about how deep to go. When you skip the surface, you take that choice away. You force intimacy on someone who hasn't opted in. And in a culture built for better and for worse, around the right to control your own emotional exposure, removing someone's choice is one of the most disorienting things you can do to a person you just met. Small talk is the lobby. Most people need to stand in the lobby for a while before they decide to walk further inside. The surface isn't shallow, it's strategic. And once you see that, really see it, you stop fighting the game. You start working with it, because the rule was never keeping you out, it was always a door. You just needed to open it at the speed it was designed to move. You're not learning to be fake, you're learning to be fluent. Tell me in the comments, which one of these have you done without realizing it? Just describe the moment. I read every one. If this is your first time here, subscribe. This channel decodes the social games nobody admits they're playing. You'll hear it everywhere now.